Did it work? All right, we are on. It's Friday. Happy Friday. We are at week 2 of answering reader emails. I'm Stephanie O'Day, and I write Slow Cooker or CrockPot cookbooks. And you'll be happy to know that this week I am not chewing gum. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who took the time to email me and let me know that I need to be more professional. I appreciate it. So today's frequently asked question is, if I'm only going to buy one crock pot, what should I get? And that is a very legitimate question. So like I explained last week, I'm not a normal person. I have 14 crock pots because this is my job and I write crock pot cookbooks. But in general, it's okay to only have one. So if you can hear me and see me, let me know. It says that there's people on it, and so I just want to make sure that it works because across my screen it tells me my connection was weak. But anyway, one and one only. I suggest getting a standard 6-quart slow cooker, and that's because it's the most common on the market. It's the easiest to come by, and you can find them anywhere. Also, the recipes that I write and other crock pot cookbook writers, they're for standard 6-quart recipes. So that said, even if you're on your own or cooking for a smaller family, I would still recommend getting the 6-quart. And this is what you can do. So first off, use the 6-quart, and then you can do math and make the recipe smaller. So that part is okay. But one of my tricks is to use a Corningware or any sort of oven-safe dish that goes directly into it to create a smaller cooking vessel. So why do I do that? That's because crock pots in general work the best when they're 2/3 to 3/4 of the way full. Oh, I see my friend Kendra. Kendra, I've known Kendra online for about 8 years, and she's also friends with my friend Carmen, who I've known online I don't know, for like 15 years. So, hi, nice to see you. So, oh, it's funny. So Chevy asked about a certain brand. So this is not a sales pitch by any means. On my website, I do have the cookers that I personally use and recommend. If you buy anything through my site, I do get a kickback. But that said, any of the ones on the market that came out recently will be perfectly safe and totally fine. I like the programmable cookers. So if you're looking for a brand new one, I would get a standard 6-quart and I would get programmable. And programmable means that instead of just the old school knob of high, low, warm, off, it lets you pick the cooking time. So if you're out of the house for 12 hours, but your recipe calls for only cooking 6 hours, don't cook it for 12 hours because you're out of the house. Instead, set the timer for 6 hours. It will flip automatically over to this warm setting and keep your food hot and ready to go when you arrive home. And that kind of helps with the kind of dried out, kind of old school watered down meat that we grew up with in the 70s and 80s. So you don't have to do that. Okay, so back to the standard 6-quart. So this is your oval standard 6-quart. And crock pots in general work the best when they're 2/3 to 3/4 of the way full. So if you are regularly getting dried and kind of funky chicken breast or chicken thighs, it's usually because you're not filling it very well. So 2/3, 3/4. I mean, we're talking a nice filled capacity here. So the way around that is you put in your oven-safe dish. So this is a 1.5 quart Corningware. It came with a wedding set. It was all nestled together. It was really nice. So that, woof, noisy stuff. So that goes in your pot, just like this. And what it does is it creates this smaller cooking vessel that insulates your food. You don't need to put water around the base. Put your chicken, your meat, whatever it is, right in the Corningware. Fill it that way. Then put the lid on like normal. And slow cook according to the recipe directions. So if your recipe for your 6-quart calls for, I don't know, 12 chicken drumsticks, and you know your family's not going to eat 12 chicken drumsticks, cut it in half, make 6, but put the 6 in the Corningware and then put the lid on. It's totally okay for it to overflow, not a problem. I also have tips for, like, if you're baking potatoes or something and you only want to bake a few at a time, although you shouldn't, you should totally bake like 16 because if it's, flip it the other way or use a different type of thing because it just creates a smaller vessel. So if you don't have a Corningware pan, that's okay too. A loaf pan, metal, totally fine because you're not adding any water to the bottom of the base. So we talked about the programmable and why I like them. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Christmas light timers because that's a question that I get an awful lot. Let me drink some coffee. Oh, okay, so Deb asks, will I answer the hole in the lid question? Okay, that is a good question, Deb. You know what? Let's just do that right now. Okay, so this hole in the lid, it says insert probe. So anyway, I don't use the probe. So in some of the newer cookers, there's this like meat thermometer thing and you plunk it in and then when it reaches a certain temperature, you can, the pot will automatically turn off. I don't use that, and the reason I don't use that is because I want my recipes to work for any sort of pot, not a fancy probe pot. Gosh, that sounds really gross. But anyway, so that is not something I need to worry about. As far as the amount of heat and moisture that escapes from this tiny little hole, it's negligible. It's not a big deal at all. If you happen to have a pot that has a spoon crack, I'll show you what I mean. So a spoon crack or a spoon wedge has this like divot out, and that's so you can put your serving spoon in it while you're serving for a buffet, which is great for a buffet, but it's not helpful if you're cooking your food unattended all day. So I wad up a piece of foil and shove it in the crack so then the lid sits in nicely. Okay, so back to the Christmas lights because I want to get it out of my brain. People do this, and I don't recommend it, and that's because I took a food safety class, and according to the FDA, the USDA? I don't know. One of the DAs. So one of the DAs, it's either FDA or USDA, is who hosted the class that I took. And food needs to actively be cooking, so heating or cooling in order for it to be safe. So if you leave the house and you're out of the house for 12 hours and you're like, that's okay, I'll put my roast on and hook it into my Christmas tree light thing, and so it won't turn on until noon, so then that's how I can get around the fact that I'm out of the house for 12 hours. That's not safe. So don't do that. Invest in a good programmable pot. They are listed on my website, but you can totally get one for right around $50 easily. Okay, so that's it. I have more questions to answer, but I'm actually meeting my mom and grandma for lunch, so I'm going to go, and I hope you have a very happy Friday, and thanks so much.